Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Singer, pianist, and former American Idol contestant Shaun Barrowes is our guest today. Shaun talks about his music as well as his passion for helping young people thrive in various music programs in schools.
Hello and welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. My guest today is the Emmy-nominated songwriter Shaun Barrowes. Shaun was also a top contestant on American Idol, and he is now bringing his music and message to schools across the country. Let's bring him on. Shaun Barrowes, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Shaun, when did you first know that your passion was music?
I would say, I performed as a 3-year-old with a family, but I would say the passion that I discovered the passion there when I was probably more like 15. So even though I had taken years of piano lessons and sung in front of people, it wasn't really until 15 when I started to write my own music, when I really started to feel like this is a valid outlet for me. It was therapeutic. It was my catharsis. So 15 was probably the golden age.
Got it. And I'm always interested in the shift people make, because some people are just sing. I like to sing music. And then there is a shift with a lot of people I've interviewed on the writing portion of music. So there's certainly a huge difference between singing music and writing music. So how do you balance the two?
In the beginning, I was only focused on writing. I wasn't even really focused on the singing element. I was kind of more like, I sing just to deliver the song that I'm writing. And then it was actually when I went on to the TV show American Idol when I started to realize maybe I should take my singing more seriously and sing my own stuff professionally, not just hand it off to someone else. Up until that point, I always kind of figured I would just write for someone else and they would be the artist and I would just be the songwriter. But I would say that validation from Simon, Paula, and Randy was what I kind of needed. Plus a few producers in the studio were kind of saying, you've got a unique tone. You should just try singing it yourself. And so I think at that point I started to find it. And I've always enjoyed singing. That's singing in front of an audience on a stage has its own kind of, chemistry, its own kind of excitement to it that is different than the being in the studio and writing. So it's hard to really pick a favorite sometimes. Which one is, more of the outlet, is it the performing or the writing?
Yeah, I hear you. And it's interesting to me because I've been watching all those shows. I watch all those shows from inception till currently until they ended. So, but you mentioned the heaviest hitters in the original American Idol. So for people watching, they should realize that you're talking about the original American Idol. And it's interesting to me because it's not a writing show. There were some songwriter shows actually on TV the last couple of years. But what made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go on this show? And obviously you love the fact that you write music, but what would make you go out there and say, but I'm going to put forth the singing Shaun Barrowes?
I got convinced. I got talked into it. It wasn't even really my idea. Mm-hmm. I let, whether it was a lot of friends, I had a small fan base and they were all encouraging me to do it. But I had a lot of friends who were like, let's just go and try out together. And we almost auditioned for, I think, season 3 or 4. A friend of mine were like, we'll just kind of off the cuff. We'll just kind of, make a Friday night of it and just head over down the street where they're auditioning. And then we saw the gigantic line. We're like, oh, we're not going to wait in that line. It wasn't, it was more like if we could just walk in and audition, that's one thing. But waiting for hours, we're not that committed. So we passed on it. And then a few years later, when I was kind of trying my touring circuit as a songwriter, singer-songwriter, pushing out some original stuff. I had some of these, fans. I would do these little shows with like 50 people, but those 50 people would come out and say, "This new show, it's really big. You gotta audition. It's gonna be a big win for you. We really think you could do well." And so I'm like, I don't know about that, but I happened to be in Charleston, South Carolina, when they were holding these auditions, and I was like, I have an extra day. I got a book I want to read anyway. Let me just read this book in line. And so, funny thing, I don't even know if it's really a confession. The book I was reading at the time isn't one that I'm like really proud about, but I always want to know what the teen fiction trends are, right? And so I happened to be reading Twilight at the time.
Right.
So I read the Twilight. I think it was the second book of the Twilight series, and I read the whole thing while I waited in line for my audition. And then I walked up to my audition. I scattered a few lines. It was more like I did it to the Stevie Wonder track, but I just kind of threw some scat together. Like it was just kind of not really anything I cared that much about. I'm like, I'll just try this out. And then they waved me through, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll make something out of this. So I didn't really think anything of it until I actually got that golden ticket.
That's amazing. That's so exciting. And what is that experience like? I know people think everything. I always say people know the glory, but they don't know the story. It's the waiting in line. It's the nerves. It's getting up in front of three people. It's not just all flash. So what are the kind of backstage things that you saw, or the real trials and tribulations that make it, quite an accomplishment and not so easy to do, specifically with American Idol?
I mean, there's definitely the fact that you're competing against hundreds of thousands of singers. That's one. They give you 30 seconds. You gotta wow them in 30 seconds. They make you wait hours to do that. So definitely the waiting gets on your, increases the nerves. And that's including like when you go to Hollywood Week, same thing. They wake you up at 6 a.m, but then you don't actually sing for the judges until 3 p.m. And so you're just kind of in a room full of other contestants who are all nervous and excited to sing, and all waiting, and everybody's kind of chatting and they're singing nervously and kind of prepping, and they're warming up their voice over and over again, wondering when we're going to sing, and it's going to be any minute. They don't tell you it's going to be 3 p.m. They're just going to say the judges are going to come any minute. Wow. And then you just wait for hours, and then they feed you lunch in the middle or something like that. So it's 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 kind of like icing the kicker is the similar like scenario in football. It's when they roll out the timeout after timeout to ice the kicker. It's kind of the same format as the singing competitions. They try to amp up the anxiety and the nerves so that by the time you're in front of the judges, it's really who is the coolest and calmest among you that can still perform. That's really the test is, can you do it under pressure?
I get that. Some people would think that's cruel, but I would argue that that's probably necessary. And they really want to. Their job is to weed out the people who can't, handle the pressure. So I certainly get that. It's a little tougher because now they're allowing younger contestants on these shows back compared to when you were on. So let's shift now, because you're all about the music. You don't seem to be about the flash, because music and music programs, particularly in schools, seems to be so important to you. So why have you decided to bring your message to schools?
They need it the most. I feel like teenagers are the most vulnerable right now. They're the least equipped for our world right now. I feel like we have made them very in one way that there's a lot of things that we've been doing that have confused them and pampered them maybe in ways, or deprived them. And it's just kind of like a really odd balance. But kids do not have the opportunities, and they don't have the fundamental building blocks to launch, which is why we're seeing a lot of failure to launch. A lot of kids that are just staying with their parents longer. They're not growing up faster. They're growing up slower because they're just not ready for the world. And there's a lot of discouragement, among them as well. There's not a lot of like real hope among these younger generations. So I mean, the education system has got a lot of problems to it. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. There's a lot of there's a lot of just disparity between the unevenness of who does have the opportunities. It really is those who can pay for the private schools and those who can pay for the extra lessons. There's a lot of kids who have great talent, great potential, great drive, no opportunities, no money, no options. And so we just kind of want to see what we can do to even the playing field a little bit. And I mean, of course, it's a drop in the bucket. Sometimes it feels like maybe I'm only helping a few at a time, but that's kind of how it has to be. It doesn't need to be about helping the masses. It needs to be helping out the individuals. And if we can focus on that and just do one at a time, then we'll actually make a difference. I feel like we actually will, help other kids go to college or get a career or find some confidence in themselves and just live a content life. That's the thing is we have there's a lot of things that need to be worked out and figured out, and kids need to figure out how to study better and how to understand, comprehend lessons better, maybe even just how to love learning more. They don't love learning right now. They're just kind of going through the motions, got to get the grade, or they're just ignoring it altogether and not even worrying about it. But there's actually like a lot of joy that comes from reading and learning and exploring new things, and the epiphanies that come from like realizing new things that is totally lost on these generations that are all about getting that grade and getting that score and comparing and competing. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and I'd love to see with the program that we want to put together. We want to give kids opportunities. We want to workshop with them and help them figure out how to really find their best, the best version of themselves in all of this. So I've kind of given like a lot of different problems, but the main thing that we focus on with our workshops is the one-on-one with the kids that have the drive, the interest. We help them figure out how to create opportunities with that and how to make the most of what they do have. And I think there's a lot to work on still.
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack here, because you and I couldn't have more synergistic philosophies, because my background is over 30 years as a teacher. And I, in teaching, can tell you, and I know I'm preaching to the choir to you, it's not all about academics, because I really believe that if we had endless amounts of funds for schools, that 10 years later, we wouldn't have the problems we have now, because the youth are the ones who are going to inherit the earth and the planet, whatnot. But yeah, it is all about, and as a teacher, it's all about how you're going to do in that region, because I taught in New York, and what's going to happen on that SAT. I have a company, Great Success Education, a tutoring business for 27 years. It's about the SAT, the ACT, and different kinds of academic things. But 75% of the kids in middle school and high school report anxiety about school because of academics, because you hit it on the head. They don't know how to study. And what I love about your answer, and people should play this back, the word music never came out of your mouth. And although you're doing this through music, music is the delivery mechanism for this philosophy of making school fun and making people love learning, which I could tell you as an educator for over 30 years, they don't. And it's not their fault. It's our fault. So I just love your philosophy, and I love what you do and what you want to do. So let's talk about the difficulties. What obstacles did you have to overcome, not only in your music career, but tied into your quest to expand music programs in school? Because based on your philosophy, they should be calling you 24/7. Come in, do what you do. So what obstacles have you had in the music career, and does that mirror some difficulties that you've had in your quest to make your program more well-known and in more schools?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of them. I mean, coming from a small town in Utah, I didn't have any mentors. So there was one thing, I didn't know what to do. When I was 18 and made my first album, I'm like, okay, what do I do now? There was no track record, nothing, nobody could come out. There was no program where I could just ask somebody like, what's a good model to build? I mean, I could find, because my family was my dad is an orthodontist, I could find a mentor in orthodontics because he'd know that, or I could find a mentor in dentistry. I mean, I had uncles in the medical field, but when it came to what I really wanted to do, there were no mentors available. There was no, and the teachers, they were, so the teachers here in Utah at that time were easy. They were very easy on things. And that was, there's pros and cons to that. They were nice and easygoing. They weren't like super rigid and strict, but at the same time, they were, there wasn't really like an ambition. It wasn't like this motivation to excel and do something with yourself. It was like, you could just kind of do what everybody else does, and just kind of fall in the middle. You'll fall in the middle and live a mediocre life and raise some kids and stuff. It was just kind of this mentality that like, there's no real need to excel. And I mean, that's also, I was discussing this with somebody. Everybody has a different path, so it's hard to know. That's why you need the one-on-one mentors. That's why you need people to take that time where it's like, if someone really has this drive and ambition to do something, there needs to be tools available to them. And if you're not rich, you don't have millions to just burn on roping in the top experts, what do? You know, the 99% of those kids will just say, well, I got nothing. I don't know who to even ask. And there needs to be programs for them to know how to find the person to ask. There needs to be mentors in place. There needs to be teachers that can maybe connect those dots. But you're right, the teachers are underpaid. They don't have any funding. They have like, I mean, there's so many problems with them just being overstretched, overworked, and underpaid that it's hard to ask teachers to do anything more than what they're already doing. I just kind of feel like we're just throwing more straw on the camel's back. And, you know, they need more help. There needs to be more options for these kids. And so, I mean, I love to, like, what I want to do is go to these programs, go to these schools individually and just say, we're an option as a workshop. We have all these professionals we're bringing with us, but we also, you know, want to clue you guys in. And that's, like I said, that's a drop in the bucket because we'll only be able to help a few, but we need to find enough people out there that maybe there's a way to expand this to where there's a lot of other people doing the same thing and going to these schools and providing mentorships and providing tools where these kids can find the answers so they know what to do, where to go, where to put their efforts. You know, I think part of the problem is if these kids, they have all this ambition and drive, and then they waste all their energy on something that's not going to pay off in any way because they're going the wrong direction. It's that cutting down the wrong forest. You know, you find out you spend all this time cutting down all the wrong trees. You climb a tree at the end, you're like, man, we're in the wrong forest. We didn't even go the right direction. You know, that's kind of the mentality of like wasting this, all that energy, the youth, those young years on things that didn't really pay off, make any difference. So I think there just needs to be more direction. There needs to be more tools that teachers can use that alleviate the problem for them, not provide them more work, you know?
As if you're not doing enough. I know you also are an author, and not just an author of memoirs, an author of nonfiction. You're an author of science fiction. So you're a science fiction writer.
Yeah.
I think is the Paradise Planets?
The Paradise Planets, that's right.
Yeah. So how do we go from chord C, chord E, chord G? Oh, look, I'll write a book. How does that happen?
I know, right? Yeah, that was the funny thing. An idea hit me when I was coming back from a gig in Louisiana. I was on a flight. It was about 3.5 hours. And I just had this idea for a story. And I'm like, I don't think a story like that exists. So let me just see if it does. Did a little research. Couldn't find any books about this storyline idea. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just try to hire out an author and find an author to write my story for me. And it'd be kind of fun. And then when I did that, that whole process is what kind of led me to realize that I could probably write this myself. It took 4 years. So I went from here's a concept, it's a really cool idea, and I could make it a musical. And then using the science of acoustics. So it's all about the science of acoustics. That's kind of what my fascination lies, like what sound is, you know, what capabilities there are with sound. And then as I dove into it more and I sent it to a few of my author friends, I said, you need to kind of flesh this out a little bit more. I don't really know. I don't see the full picture yet. So as I kind of continued doing that process, I started to write out the whole thing. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I should just take some courses from some master classes, some great authors like Neil Gaiman and Brandon Sanderson. I took some classes from them, learned how to like really flesh out a book. And I put a whole thing together. And then I said, you know, maybe you can at least edit the book. So I went to my author friend and asked her to edit it, still kind of under the idea that maybe I would still want to hire her to write the book. But then when she edited it, she said, you know, this is actually a pretty solid book with some tweaking here and there. And, you know, I mean, of course, she just gave me some notes on like the story. I spent another year in revisions after that, sent it to the editor again, and now it's finished. And it's like, it was just this whole process that I loved.
So with all that's going on, the burning question, the frightening question is, what is next for Shaun Barrowes?
Well, that's what I want to do is I want to put together a school tour where I can, one, do these programs we were talking about, workshop with kids, connect them and do make a difference. Because to me, that makes me feel fulfilled. If I'm doing something that really is uplifting other kids, and that's my number one. The book, I would love to have a readership. I would love to have people that enjoyed it, were inspired by it. And so as I'm doing this tour, I'm going to push the book. And I'm also looking at doing other just marketing efforts to push the book out there on TikTok, on social media, through Amazon and things like that. there's just a lot of things that we're going to do to make sure that everybody knows about the book. Obviously in the end, I don't know if they're going to like it, and I'm not going to really worry so much about that. As long as I'm making a difference with, the few that do read it, and with the tour that I'm doing to workshop with these kids and say, look, you can accomplish all these things that you want to do. And, I just feel like that's more fulfilling to me. It makes me feel like I'm making a difference in the world. I'm leaving it better than I'm finding it, and that's probably my number one. Is I want to get on the road. We're going to try to do a 3-month-long tour to hit at least 12 cities in the US and start there, and get 3 schools per city, and, involve the kids, involve the choir, let the choir sing one of my songs and do a performance with them. And then while we're there at the school, hold a workshop with the choir kids or whoever wants to be involved in this, and just listen to them, listen to see what they want to do with their lives, and help them out. I feel like we have a lot of tools we can offer. And I think it's more important, rather than just saying, here's our program, this will work for you. I want to listen to what they want and need first, and then tailor it to that. I think that's kind of a critical thing that makes a huge impact, when you really just listen to what they need.
Well, I think that's awesome. I think any of the kids who are part of this, be it high school or college kids, or even middle school kids, are very lucky. So Shaun Barrowes, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your passion for music and helping young people find their musical voice and their actual voice through your school programs. And to my viewers, I'll see you all next time. Have a great day. And Shaun, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.